Recording in.
As we're going to continue in today's service, the word that we're going to be talking about is something that impacts each and every one of us on a daily basis, but yet we don't seem to see it happening to us until it's too late. Today I want to talk about two concepts that often, I just want to move this out of the way, that often we hear about in various contexts, but we rarely take the time to deeply explore it. In Revelation 3 verse 15 to 16 it says, I know your works, that you are neither cold or hot. I wish you were cold or hot. So then, because you are lukewarm and neither cold or hot, I will vomit you out of my mouth. So the Lord speaks about it very clear in the Bible. And that's so important for us to understand. If we look at the context of this, it can mean various things and different things in anybody's life. It could be that we cannot make a decision. We need other people to make decisions for us. It could be that we sit in limbo, can't make decisions on our own, and we can't let other people get involved because we get anxiety attacks and we go into defensive mode. And then what happens is we sit lukewarm because we can't make a decision. It's either yes or no. I know I'm a person where I'm speaking to somebody, and if they're taking too long to make a decision, I'll make it for them. Because we got no time to sit on the fence, especially when we have learned that life is unpredictable. If we're going to plan for the next 10 years, which we have to do, the Lord can come tonight and take us. But because we take so long to make decisions, we end up in a fix and we end up in a rut in our own life. Today, the title of my message is Comfort Zone, which I've spoken about last year, which I'm not going to focus too much on it. And there's a second word that we're going to speak about. Anybody got any idea what the second word will be? Chris is saying procrastination. Anybody else want to go at it? Nobody else. Pastor Paul is talking about the plateau area. So the word that I'm going to bring up is a word that we keep hearing about, but we don't focus on it. We focus on comfort zone. But comfort zone leads to this area if you are not careful and you don't watch what's happening. And the word is called complacency zone. Right? So now you're asking yourself, how does complacency and comfort zone really relate to each other when they're two different activities in one's life? And we're going to unpack that very quickly. And we all experience these different points at any different point in our lives. But understanding how it affects us spiritually, mentally, and physically can help us avoid stagnation and embrace growth in God, what God's plan is for us. Many of us have written goals or transformational milestones, or we even written our purpose, our vision. Some of us still got it in our mind, which will never happen in this year because our mind tends to play games with us. Some of us have written it down, but put it somewhere where it's so safe we can't find it. And some of us have it in front of us, right? And making it happen. But what happens is, when this complacency steps in, it impacts also our visions, our transformational milestones, etc. There's two questions I want you to reflect on during the session. And the first one is, when was the last time you felt truly challenged spiritually, physically, or emotionally? I know before I picked up the ministry, I was never challenged spiritually. Physically, I used to challenge myself, but it wasn't the same as I will challenge myself now with the spiritual aspect that higher than the physical. Or your emotional state. Many people don't challenge the emotional state. They let the emotional state control them. The second question is, how often do you find yourself in a routine that feels comfortable, but you know you're not really growing? Today I heard somebody say, when I was chatting with them, they asked me, how's things going? I said, moving along. And they said, yeah, I'm waiting for the week to end. then I know they're working on 2 gears, reverse and double reverse, right? Because they got no vision, they got no passion, and they got no growth in their life. Because when we have growth in our life and there's no complacency in our life, we can't wait to see what the end of the week is going to look like. Like me, I'm actually looking forward to see when I look at December and I look back to January, I want to see the miles and the leaps and bounds that we have come as a ministry, and me personally, at the growth that's going to come through it. In 1 Corinthians 9 verse 24, it says, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize." Many of us are running the race, not even understanding if there's a prize in our race. Some people don't even know who we're running against, right? But the question I want to ask you today is, do you know who's in your race? Many of us are running a race at the moment, but do you honestly understand who's in your race? And if I had to ask you that question, how many people do you think is in your race that's running for that prize? What will your answer be? Anybody? Nobody wants to answer. There's no right or wrong, but in your race, there should only be 2 people, yourself and God. Because everybody is on their own race in this journey called life. The problem that we have and why we get into a comfort zone which leads to complacency is that we're too busy trying to compete with the Jones and too busy trying to compete with our colleague at work. We're trying to compete with our family members. And what happens is, because they compete us, what we do is we get into a comfort zone, eventually into complacency, and then we get into a pity party which we can't get out of, and we start feeling sorry for ourselves. That's why the younger generation of today, they struggle with life, because life is all about a competition. And that's why we always say, you're not here to compete, you're here to run your own race. What will that race be? What will that race look like, and how will you complete that race, and what prize will you receive when you're running your own race with God right next to you? So today, understand you're running your own race. The difference between the comfort zone and complacency zone is as follows. In the comfort zone, it's a place in life where we feel safe, secure, and at ease. We think about it as a space you find familiar, it's predictable, stable, and feels relaxing. And it's not a bad thing sometimes to be in a comfort zone. I always thought it was a bad thing until I was reading this word. And I'm saying actually the comfort zone is actually not a bad place. And we'll see when it does become a bad place. From a spiritual comfort zone perspective, it is where you feel content and with your current relationship with God. Maybe you attend church regularly, pray occasionally, read the Bible whenever you feel it. You're comfortable and you feel everything is going fine. But guess what? There's no growth. Like with me, every single week, when I'm preparing the word and I'm waiting upon the Lord, I can't believe the growth that's coming. I'm even here getting people sending me messages after the services to say, I think that was your best, but I liked your other one, but this is also the best. It shows me that I am growing. And then whatever I preach, I go and apply, and I see, yes, it does work. Then you have the physical comfort zone, where it becomes a routine of work, eating your favorite foods, and sticking to activities that don't require much effort. You don't necessarily feel that you need to push yourself beyond what's comfortable. And guess what? There's still no growth because we don't push the limits. The good and the bad. The first one, it's peace and recharge. You feel peace and you recharge. And the second part is where it's not good, is you are not growing and reaching your full potential. So you can see the difference about what's good about a comfort zone and what's bad about a comfort zone. So what is complacency zone? Is in the mindset that causes you to settle for mediocrity. It's with the belief that things are good enough and there's no need to further effort on improvement. There's no further effort required. That's complacency, right? And how does it affect your spiritual life? It is when you've been doing something for a while, but you've stopped growing. Maybe you're no longer interested in diving deep into the word, seeking personal transformation, or engaging in new acts or services. Your faith becomes a routine. You don't feel the urgency to press into God anymore. So you get into a place of complacency. And what does it do to you physically? It's when you're comfortable with your current health, even though you know you're not taking care of your body. You don't exercise regularly, you eat poorly, you convince yourself, I am fine. You see what complacency does? It gives you that false sense of reality. There is no good in being complacent. Is that it causes us to stop trying, to stop pursuing excellent spiritual growth and physical vitality. We simply exist, but we are not thriving. There's a difference between growth and thriving, right? There is no energy, there's no goal in your life, right? Comfort zone versus complacency and how they are different is simple. Comfort zone is a place where you find rest, security, stability. It's not inherently bad, as we need it to avoid burnout. But if we stay there far too long, we might stop growing. Complacency, on the other hand, it's a mindset that says, I'm good enough as I am. It's when we stop striving for improvement or growth. Complacency is about not moving, even when we know that. Sorry, I'm just muting somebody. It's not when we know there's more potential within us. And you see the difference on the comfort zone. It's natural. It's a place of rest and stability. In the complacency perspective, it's a mindset of stagnation. Right? Very important for you to understand that. The dangers of complacency, and that's where we're going to focus on, is stagnation. Right? When we stop growing, we stop improving. Spiritually, we become lukewarm, which can lead to a dull relationship with God. And furthermore, from a physical perspective, we become less active, leading to health problems with overtime. All right? The problem we have is we bring this on ourselves, because when we stay in our comfort zone, we don't think of complacency. We have missed opportunities, right? Because we say we're not good enough, we miss out on the opportunities to grow, whether it's advancing in your career, making new connections, or stepping out in faith. Because we are complacent, we stop growing. We decline. And this is something I see all the time. There's a gradual decline in your life. Before you know it, you're sitting in this place and you hear people say, I don't know how to get out of this. Right? It's because you don't push yourself, you begin to fade. Even in your health, your career, your faith, anything that doesn't give you activity will eventually cause a decline. So if you had to look at this complacency, 3 areas, where are you fitting in this? Are you fitting in one of these areas? How to move beyond the comfort zone and combat complacency. There's quite a lot of words on here, but I'm just going to call out the 4 areas. You need to recognize the signs of complacency and ask yourself questions like, am I growing? Am I just going through the motions? Is God really with me, or do I merely take him as a task in the day? And physically, am I taking care of my body? Am I ignoring what's going on with me? These are some of the questions you will ask. The next one is you need to set new challenges. So the question is, are you setting new challenges for yourself? Or you set them, but you get so intimidated by them, you back off before you can even set them. Embrace change. Are you one that embraces change? I was speaking to somebody today and he was telling me that, oh, I can't get my head around this. Why can't we give it to somebody else? I said, it's not changing. You will take it on. No, but you don't understand. And I said, yes, I do understand. Stop making excuses and embrace change. If you keep making excuses, you will never embrace change and you will slip into complacency. Remember your purpose. We are not created to remain in a comfort zone or settle for complacency. We are created to grow, learn, and become more Christ-like in all areas of our life. Where are you, and are you excelling in these areas? In Philippians 3 verse 13 to 14, it says, brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it. But one thing I do, forgetting what is behind me and straining towards what is ahead of me, I press on towards the goal to win the prize of which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. Do you know what God has called you to be on this earth? It took me 50 years to understand what God called me to be on this earth. And I can tell you, what I achieved in this last 2 years in my life will far outweigh the 50 years that I messed around and I was lukewarm and I was complacent and I was stubborn. I can tell you from experience, find what race you are running, identify that, identify with God what is your purpose and what you need to achieve. The prize that you will look at it through a different lens, and you will strive to what's ahead of you. You won't look what's behind you. Many of us want to look what's behind us, and then what happens? The comfort zone gets us, the complacency gets us. Guess what happens? Our life declines. Don't let life live you, and don't let other people set your goals and live your life for you. The takeaway from what we were talking about is the comfort zone is a good place to rest, but it's not where, let me put this up on screen, but it's not where you were meant to stay. If you were not careful, we can let complacency set in, keeping us from the growth and purpose and potential that God has planned for us. And that's so important to understand. Today, when you go out, where do you fit into this world? Are you ready to take yourself out of a comfort zone? Or are you willing to stay complacent? There was a time, I'm talking about 5 years ago, I just couldn't win the battle on every single thing that was hitting me. One, I was recovering from health, which was 5 years prior to that, but there was a beating that my body took, right? I couldn't do things that I could do 5 years prior to that. So what happened is I started becoming into a comfort zone because I used what happened over the 5 years as a crutch to keep me in the comfort zone. Every time when I got up to do something and to make a change in my life, because my physical being wasn't strong enough, it affected me emotionally and mentally. And when that happened, I started getting up every morning, writing a to-do list. When I look at it in the afternoon, I haven't achieved anything, but I'll do 10 other things that added no value into my life. And now when I was doing this message and I look back, for 5 years after that, I got into a state of complacency. Because of unemployment as well, I got into a state of complacency. And because of what was happening, life was happening to me, it was a state of complacency. So I started letting life live me instead of me living life. And many of us will find in our situation as we speak is that when you go to your workplace, do you go there with a heavy heart and say, sure, I have to be in this place again. It's got to pay my bills. Or you go there treating it like your own. I know when I was leaving the office late last night and I was switching the alarm off, and the first thing came to my mind was, sure, I actually treat this like my own business. And I was actually locking up the office and leaving. For one, they trust me with the alarm code because I've gained credibility in 4.5 months. For two, they see Christ in me and the way I behave, and there's integrity around that. So they respect that. And I'm not in a place of comfort or complacency. because everything becomes urgent, important, but I know how to manage the difference. Because if we don't know how to manage important and urgent, guess what happens? We go back into a comfort zone, we go back into complacency, and that vicious circle starts turning again. So be careful when you get up in the morning. Watch how you set yourself up for the day. Because if you don't set yourself up correctly, comfort zone, complacency will get you. I need you to ask yourself, where am I complacent in my life? And if you had to take a few seconds to think about where are you complacent in your life, what will that look like? What areas would you find that's causing you to complacent in your life? Is it regards with time? Is it your children? Is it your work? Is it just the way you behave? Is there a bad habit that causes that? Or is there people in your life that causes you to go into a complacent state? And there's a lot of people that can do that very well. They got their doctorates in allowing you to help you go into a complacent state. You need to cut those people out. And it's very important. And what I did is when I first started, when the Lord started, how can I put it? He's turning me right side up. And I was going through my sifting. Couple things that I had to do is write a list. And I physically did that. Of all the people that's close to me in my life. And I wrote next to each one, what value do they add in my life? Right? And then next to that, I wrote there, are they a time waster who drains my energy? I had to write that there. And those that fell under value and time waster, I looked at the percentage of value they add to my life, and a time waster, I struck them off my list. So what happened was, one of the things I had to do, unfortunately, is when they call, I didn't take their call. Because I know 45 minutes to 2 hours will go hearing about how much problems they have in their life and how much negativity in their life. By the time they finish, they've just downloaded two hours of negativity into my spirit. And by the time I get out of that, I can look back and say, those 2 hours, I could have done something to add value to my life. So what I've done is, I've removed the people through a list. I'm not saying ignore them. When I have time, I would phone and just check up on them. But I make sure I tell them, listen, I've got to go. There's another call coming through. Because you don't want to fill yourself up with negativity. Where am I not growing spiritually and physically in my life? One of the things that I look at on a daily basis, am I growing in the Word? Why do I look at that as an important part now? It's because if I'm not growing in the Word, the church is not growing in the Word. If the church is not growing in the Word, the people are not growing in the Word. If the people are not growing in the Word, as ambassadors of Christ, we are not making an impact in the world. So you see how it starts with you and how it impacts the greater area of just where you are. So if you are not growing spiritually and physically, remember I said in the kingdom, not in the church, in the kingdom. What example are you at your workplace, at the shopping center, at a doctor's surgery, at another function? Do people see growth in you? Do they see complacency in you? What do they see in you? And do you become a person of value that somebody will not strike off their list? I know when people call me, even in the mornings when I'm speaking to people and I'm driving to work, they phone me because I'm not stuck off their list. But there's some people I stuck off my list because my value will not go into negativity. There's certain things people need to do to ensure that negativity doesn't affect their spiritual and physical growth. So today, as we're going to break through on these chains of complacency and comfort zone, let today be the day that you break free from complacency and start embracing new challenges, growth, and the potential that God has placed inside of you. And you notice, I didn't say beside you or through somebody else. I say the potential that God has placed inside of you. Because when He places the potential inside of you, you will have full control of whether you access it or you lock it up. And what will happen is, if you get into a place of complacency, you will lock it up and you will never unleash it. When you unleash your full potential, it's not for you. It's to impact people around you. It's like what I am doing. I never thought I will teach the word, I will preach the word, I'll make an impact to people. Yes, I used to advise people, but not at the level where I am now. But what had to happen first? I had to get out of my comfort zone. I had to get out of complacency. I had to step in to an area that I wasn't familiar with. And when that area I became familiar with, I had to stretch myself to go to another area. And that's how you move from one level to the other, to get to the point where your full potential that the Lord has placed inside of you starts manifesting on the outside. So the question is, what will you choose? Will you choose your comfort zone? Or will it be complacency zone? Or will it be achieving your full potential today? So I'm trusting that what I've been speaking to you all about now is something that you will take back and apply in your life. And my prayer for you all today is to say that, as I go through my day, am I slipping into a comfort zone, which could be a potential complacency area? Or am I going to reach my full potential? And I want you to take back with you understanding that there's only two people in your race from this day forward. It's God and yourself. Stop running other people's race. Focus on what God has planned for you, because I can tell you now, it's the best place to be. Best place to be, because that's where you find your peace and your rest. I always end my slides by saying, remember, life only changes when you decide the change you want in your life.